did you launch him 80
You
feet
told
in the
me
air?
to boat flip him!
I didn't tell you to launch him 78 feet in the air.
I flipped him in the boat, didn't I?
Send it to the moon.
I sent it! You said boat flip him!
Oh, yeah.
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never, disappointed out here because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure, because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
On my property, you didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight on this Monday Night Live? Welcome to June 10th here. We are slowly getting into that summertime season, and that means so many things in our area. One of them is just the Potomac River absolutely getting the snot kicked out of it, which is going to be one of the things that we're talking about today, because today is a little bit different. I haven't done this in a while, and I've been promising people that I was going to try this. I got some new software here for a call-in show, and that is what we are going to be doing today, is a call-in show. We got Josh Evans. What up? We got Justin B. Fishing. Perfect timing. How is everybody doing tonight? How does my mic sound before we get started here? And we're going to be trying out some of this new audio. So, yep, as I said, we have a really cool show. I've been wanting to do just kind of a riff for a while where I just talk about some topics and get your opinions and listen to what you guys have to say. And good Lord, did I pick some topics. I put a poll up on my Facebook channel just to see what people were interested in really talking about tonight. And so the topics that we have based on my outlook is the BFL situation on the Potomac River. Are BFLs dead in general? Is there too many tournaments on the Potomac? Is the Potomac River overfished? And then also at the end of the show, we have some news on the forward-facing sonar data. So a lot of really, really cool topics that I want to get into. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw up the old, let me get this here. I'm going to go throw this up right here. Call-in number is 667-307-8583. Again, the call-in show number is 667-307-8583 to get going here tonight. Some of the topics that we're going to be going over, again, where is the state of the Potomac River right now? I mean, this time of year in our part of the woods, and this is not just the Potomac River, it could be the upper Bay, if you want to talk about that, or Lake Anna or Smith, but are the places that we fish, are they actually overfished? I know the Potomac right now, there's a tournament, it seems like every freaking weekend right now, which is absolutely insane. And I don't even know how these places have the ability to deal with all the pressure. But honestly, or maybe I could be wrong. Maybe the pressure isn't as bad as it would seem right now. I mean, when you look at some of these weights that the Costa or the Toyota series came out with Mr. Cat, I think he's going to be on Ike and Ellie's show either tonight or next week or something like that. He had a 20-pound bag, 3 days. Absolutely insane. And that's not something you might necessarily see from a fishery that is completely overwhelmed because of all of the pressure that's on it. So it is fascinating to me when you see a tournament going out every single weekend, how that actually affects. And so we got Master McCluskey. Audio is much better. All right, awesome, bud. So yeah, audio sounds good. Perfect. So I can stop stalling for time and I can kind of get into the show that I wanted to get into. Cool. So anyway, call-in number there. First person to call in is going to win a prize to try to get this ball rolling. I'm going to start venting with my topics on this bad boy. Is there too many tournaments on the river? Was one of the subjects that was on my post. How do you control that tournament-wise? The post really was, I think it was for kayak fishing. Is there too many kayak tournament trails that are out right now? Honestly, I don't know how you would even gauge that. I don't know how you would control that except government interference. And that's my problem with the whole idea. It's like, oh, there's too many tournament organizations. And it doesn't have to be anything. It could be boat. It could be something else. But the problem when you start saying like, well, should we limit that and how? That's a slippery slope. Because then who gets to be the only organization? Now, we do have a call-in number here, so let's try to get this guy into the show right now. All righty, here. I'm clicking on the new software. Caller, you are in. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. What's your name? What do you want to talk about?
This is Josh Evans, bro. How you doing?
Hey, bud. Awesome. Glad the software works. Good to hear from you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Glad to be able to call in and chat it up.
So I loved your conversation there, because I was just talking to Mr. Johnson earlier today about like the boat side of things, and I mean, what's your vibe on it?
Well, I'll tell you. Yeah, I've been seeing the numbers, and there really is a tournament, at least one tournament going on, if not two, every single weekend on the Potomac, and that's just on the bass boat side. That's I mean, a lot of the fisheries down south, like you're talking about, like Tennessee River chain, that kind of stuff, they can sustain that, and even then it's hammered. But the Potomac, these last few years has really been coming back, in my opinion. I think the combination of the snakehead, fry, and everything else, giving the bass more forwards, they've been doing really well. But the problem now is so many tournaments. You flip it, and for me, it's the kayaks that I really look at, and we already have 3 really great trails here in the region, with that third one starting this season, and we've balanced it out pretty well. But even then, now there's another tournament series that's getting ready to start, supposedly, and it's just crazy to me.
It is, but it's like, is this just what happens when we said for so many years, grow the sport, and it's like, well, be careful what you wish for, because that's where we're at now. Because what do you do about it? Government intervention? We just cut back? Like, what would limiting tournaments look like, I guess?
I don't know, man. I mean, from the bass boat side, I think, adopting like the CPR format would be super beneficial to the health of the fishery. I know the mortality rates of fish. I know you had Steve was Chicones on.
Yeah.
Not too long ago, talking about mortality rates in the summer, and I concur completely with that. The volume of tournaments going way up over the summer, staying at this high tempo, I don't think it's sustainable for the fishery or healthy for the fishery personally. I'd like to see CPR get implemented on the bass boat side during the summertime. I would like to see there be some kind of limit to the number of kayak trails that stand up. Like nothing against the guy. I don't know the guy, but from what I understand, he's only fished 2 kayak tournaments, and now he wants to start a kayak trail. It's like, bro, like, I don't want to say read the room, but maybe reach out to the other trails and say, hey, what's already going on in the area, and contributing to the growth there, rather than stockpiling on and one, again, having yet another set of tournaments on the river, but also impacting the ability for those trails to expand or grow. It's just, it's a double-edged sword, really.
It is. And that's something, so, from the Maryland department side, we talked about, because again, they're all in about catch, weigh, release, catch, measure, release. And then they talked about like, well, fish mortality in summer is a problem. And then they talked about, well, there's a mortality rate in the spawn time. And it's like, well, you know what Pennsylvania did? They're like, we just don't want you to fish the spawn, but we'll give you the summer. And they're like, fine. And now they're like, you know what? It's a little too hot out. And then before you know it, half the year, they're like, you can't fish. And I guess I get nervous with, is this going to be just we try to regulate this ourselves, or do we need to have, Big Brother come in and say, like, you need to buy a permit and you can only have so many permits? And that's where I don't know the answer, honestly.
Yeah, I honestly don't know the answer either. I don't want to say necessarily a Big Brother, the government has to get involved, but I do think that, I don't know, man. I feel like the tournament organizations should really work more cohesively together to kind of figure out a
Agreed.
schedule that doesn't hammer the fishery so often, or gives it a break. I mean, fish don't have a chance to reset. They're constantly getting relocated. It's a constant, the stress levels of moving those fish as far as some of them move is crazy, especially when the temperatures get to what they get to in the summer. Yeah, there's got to be something.
I agree with that. And something else that I mentioned before is this idea that we have as tournament organizers, where it has to be a certain size body of water. And if you're going to say, just an example for your organization, it has to be over 60,000 acres. Well, if that's the case, then of course we're going to limit ourselves, and then we're all going to fish the same body of water. If people would take advantage of Deep Creek Lake, Lake Anna, Conowingo, I'm not saying for every tournament, but just at least one, it would alleviate the pressure, because it's just ridiculous that everyone does pile on the Potomac. But again, if your mindset is it can only be a certain size, it's a problem because look at like Ohio, like their lakes are the size of a damn pond. I know Indian Lake is like 3,000 acres and they have 200 boat tournaments. It sucks. I am not saying like that'll be the best fishing, but if you have a 5 tournament schedule, instead of having maybe all of your events on the Potomac, put one just somewhere else. It sucks, but it does help alleviate that pressure.
I agree completely with that. I mean, you know, the three kayak tournament series that are out there now, you know, the primary ones at least, Mid-Atlantic Kayak Bass Fishing, Northern Virginia Kayak Bass Anglers, and Chesapeake Reel Masters. You know, we all rotate bodies of water. We own MKBF and NVKBA. They only hit the Potomac once a year. CRM, they rotate between the Upper Bay and the Potomac. So you know, on the kayak side, we got that down. I would like to see, and I understand series dedicated to Potomac or to that particular body of water, but them finding some kind of, you know, again, other body of water that's, you know, a similar or that would still accommodate their number of anglers to allow it to reset would be great. I mean, one of the things that I thought was crazy. So I was fishing when we did our opener down there in April. On day one of the launch, we had 2 clubs that weren't even from the DMV. Like we had, it was like, yeah. They were way out of state and they were holding their events on the Potomac. And I was like, good Lord, like, you know what I mean? We have enough pressure locally as it is, but now we have organizations coming from other states that are applying additional pressure. You know, that's a part where maybe the government big brother aspect saying, hey, you know, we already have X number of tournaments or X number of permits in place. Out of state ones might need to take a backseat to that. That's just my opinion.
That is a great piece there because when Pennsylvania outlawed so many tournaments, what happens is Maryland gets dumped on, Virginia gets dumped on. And this is the slippery slope I talked about where, okay, Pennsylvania says they outlaw tournaments, then Maryland does. Then all of a sudden, all those anglers are going to go to Virginia, and it's just a domino effect. And I don't, it sucks. It really does. I think catchway release will, whether you like it or not, it's definitely become more of a thing as the technology gets better, especially the weighing aspect since the measurement one is like down pat. But it's like what NVKBA did, which was interesting, is like we'll have a 3-lake tournament. They're smaller lakes, but now we don't have to hit the Potomac. And in my mind, that's something that Major League Fishing kind of did well in certain aspects, is like hit smaller lakes, hit smaller bodies of water. That's what's going to have to happen at some point because it's ridiculous that they look at it. It's just the Potomac or the Upper Bay. But I mean, you guys in your words, you hit the Conowingo. I never even heard of the damn place. And again, it's because if you're in the zeitgeist of bass fishing, unless it's like a Potomac, it doesn't exist on your radar.
Right. Well, I will tell you, this year was my first year actually fishing the Conowingo, and dude, it is one of my favorite new fisheries. It's not new, but new to me, fisheries in the entire area, dude. I mean, It is phenomenal. And I know some people are going to comment and shut up, don't say it, but the place is pretty badass, honestly.
Yeah. 100%.
And yeah, that's it. You know, the thing is, you know, these organizations, they've got to communicate and they've got to figure out other bodies of water. I mean, they don't have to, but if we're talking the health of the fishery and maintaining the larger spawning size females that really put out the good, you know, gene, so to speak, I really think that it's necessary, man.
It's also just, and this is my thought, is capitalism. If you're an organization and you look at like the Fredericksburg area of Virginia, there's about 4 lakes, 5 lakes in about 2 minutes of each other that no one fishes. Boom. Yeah. You could put the market there, and you can find little cool sneaky spots like that in Maryland, in West Virginia. You know, just do something a little bit different, and you don't have to go to the Potomac 36 times in a row, and you will have a niche
absolutely
market.
Well, you know, I'll tell you, when we do our Delaware event, we do one Delaware event every year, you know, to help out with our primary sponsor, Delaware Paddle Sports. And we make it so any pond, lake in Delaware, and granted, they're all pretty much big ponds, right? They're not very deep, but again, it's more of a roadrunner style where everyone that's, you know, within a certain geographic area is within bounds. And that really spreads the anglers out and really makes them do their homework and figure out which fishery they want to target, which one has the best potential to perform well at. You know, it's also better than just a rinse and repeat same body of water over and over and over again. You know, that everybody's going to go sit on the same community holes and sit until the tides change. And it's just, I don't know. For me, it provides a lot more variation, and I think it's a little more exciting to do something with an organization where they travel a little bit. And winning like Angler of the Year or something like that, I think it's a bigger accomplishment personally. So I could go sit and I could go fish my honey holes. Sometimes I wish I had a bass boat, because I'd go fish my honey holes on the Potomac, and I think I'd do pretty good against them guys. But it's a matter of, I don't want to just go and sit or go fish one particular football field size area, every single tournament. That's just crazy to me.
I definitely want to I really want to highlight that too. And then guys, if you want to call in here, 667-307-8583. I know we have a couple people in the queue already. Please guys, call on in. I'll make sure I get you answered here too. An Angler of the Year is the most prestigious title in fishing, period. That's at least my opinion, that's the most important thing, not just winning a tournament. And if you do just fish 2 bodies of water, I do think taint is not the right word. It diminishes its value. When you go to a bunch of different places and you actually end up being the Angler of the Year, it makes it that much more special, 100%. Josh?
I concur completely, and I think that, I know you got to go. It's good talking with you, brother.
Thank you for calling, boss. I really appreciate it.
Well, hey, thanks for having me on. I'll see you on soon.
Yep, I'll see you out there soon. Dude, there we go. First call down.
Yeah,
We got a couple more people there in the queue. We're going to be getting up our next caller here as well. We got a couple more callers actually lining up here. So again, 667-307-8583. What do you think about that? Do you think there's too many kayak organizations? The BFLs, I think the payouts in those are absolutely atrocious right now. And I felt like it used to be when I was a kid, when the BFL was going on, everyone went to that BFL. And now it feels like some of the best anglers we don't even want to go to it. But we got another caller here lined up. Let me get him on the docket here. Let's see who this is. Caller, are you there? 804-76. Are you there, boss? He is. I can hear him listening to the podcast in the background. So while he gets to his phone, it's just interesting when you think of it, that you have so many organizations, stacked on top of each other right now, and I just don't know what the answer is. I don't like the idea of putting legislation in or government interference like that to say like, hey, listen, we don't have any more tournament organizations. There's a monopoly. That's a little. In the long run, capitalism will win out and everything will get there. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, how you doing, Thomas? Can you hear me, brother?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, man. Mr. Evans had some really, really, really good points, man. I've been listening to y'all, and honestly, Thomas, I've been seeing this for years. Talking about the out-of-state tournaments and the permit deal. And, of course, the state of Maryland, I think you can look online. You can see, who's got permits for small state park or, I think, up in the Upper Bay, you can see how many they expect and this and that and the third. But I've been seeing it for years. Basically, like, folks aren't happy, then they start another club, then there's another organization that comes. When I first started fishing, late 90s. I mean, basically, it was, Maryland Bass Federation or the Virginia Bass Federation. I guess you would say it's like the TBF now. I think there was Angler's Choice back in the day. And I know there's a couple, other little locals. I think Potomac Team's been around for a long time. But now, I mean, anglers just have so many different choices on the events they want to fish. I mean, you got Potomac Teams, you got the Battle Series. I think they've got a secondary little series going on. You got the Cat Trail. They have 3 or 4 different areas that they fish. You got the Maryland Bass Federation. You got Nation's Capital. You got the Virginia Chapter Federation. You got Virginia, I think it's Region 1. This started this year. So there's just a ton. And that's all, like I said, the last call I was saying, that's not including Pennsylvania, that's not including New Jersey, that's not including Delaware. They come to smaller state park because their fisheries are closed, because a lot of those guys don't want to do CBR. They say, oh, well, let's go to the Potomac and let's go and do that, and that's what puts so much, pressure on the river. That's including the local tournaments, just, guys just want to go out fun fishing. Me as a guide, I mean, I'm telling you, it's difficult for me to go out here on a Saturday or even a Friday evening, or Friday morning because guys are practicing and stuff. I mean, basically, I tell my clients, it's like, you probably want to have an enjoyable day coming on a Wednesday. It's just so much pressure out here. And as far as tournaments goes, as far as the quality tournaments, that's the problem we got. Is you don't have so many anglers in an area, and I think what has happened, the fields are just getting diluted more and more and more because there's just so many different fields. I mean, I think I sent a message to Bob Petty via Facebook. I mean, he put his schedule up just to throw it out there. Definitely support all our local tournament stuff. And Bob Petty is a very nice guy and runs a great trail. 90% payback. I mean, he's probably one of the best local trails around. But that tournament I think had 70 to 80 boats. And then the BFL had like 180 boats. So there was like 300 something boats out there. It looked like the Department of the Navy was sitting at High Point near Occoquan. I mean, there must have been 50, 60 boats from High Point all the way to Belmont Bay. I had never seen anything like it. And I had a gentleman from Delaware pull up on me, and it was like, literally, I could have thrown a crapper jig with 50-pound test on the front deck. I mean, he was that close. And it's and we had some choice words, you know what I mean? And kind of, he was like, I asked him nicely, I was like, dude, which way you going? Because, some guys are just trying to pass through, but he was continuing to cast, like, right in front of me. He's like, okay. And then I had to talk to him. I had to turn to Mr. A-hole, and I don't like that, man. But, I mean, that's the deal when you're fishing crowds, man. It's just communication is the biggest thing, man. It's like, hey, I don't want to cast in front of which way you going. But that's just how it is on the river now, man. There's just so much freaking pressure out here. But I don't know, Thomas, I kind of want to switch gears and talk to you about the MLF thing. I think that was one of the big topics that you had too. Mm-hmm. And this is my whole take on MLF, man. I mean, I might get shot in the face. There's a lot of, big time pro MLF guys. I'm not saying I'm pro or anti. I think it's a trail that can be fixed. I think there's a lot of things that are great. I think there's a lot of things that absolutely suck. One of the biggest things I don't like about the MLF is, and it's been like that, don't get me wrong, but you get a lot of guys, they'll fish Smith Mountain Lake, they great sticks, they get first place, they get that big $5,000 golden nugget, and then come to the Potomac River, they're not there. The second one on Potomac, they're not there. Go to Kerr, they're not there. So the guys that want to go to that next level, go to the regional, which used to be free. There's another thing. That used to be free. I now sound like James Watson. Free. Everything's free. Well, it's not free anymore. So now you're paying $300 for a regional on top of $300 for a 2-day. And it was really interesting before I made the call. I was looking at a lot of the data. If you look at 2023, the standings for 2023, I think Zach Stupel won $8,000. He was the angler of the year. But if you look at the fifth place guy, he won $130, mm-hmm. including the regional and including the 2-day. So MLF, or any organization for that matter, how can you expect an angler where boats are approaching $100,000, where gas is $4 a gallon for non-ethanol, equipment is at an all-time high, to sustain their sport, to sustain what they're doing throughout the season, and you cut $130, and I did the math behind that, and I think we talked about it sometime earlier. We were talking about, the entry fees. The entry fee for the entire regular season is almost $1,300. I think it's like $1,245. Including all these fees and stuff. And that was another thing we didn't have on the FLW. But anyway, not to bad the organization. This is just some of the critiquing points. But these were basically $1,250 for the entire season. Now you add another $330 for your 2-day. Then you add another $300 if you make the regional. So in the end game, at the end of the regional, if you don't make the All-American, basically, if you're not clearing over $3,000, I almost say $3,500, you haven't made a dime. And I looked at it, and it's like, you can go all the way down to the top 25. I don't think any of those anglers made money. There might have been one or two that can pretty much say they made money. But it's how do you make top 5 and you only, got $130? There's got to be some type of, structure change to make these anglers pay for the full season. Like, you're all in or you're not all in. And I think that's the thing, not showing favoritism to particular circuits or anything. But I kind of like the way the Steve Camp's doing the Elite 70s. They're going to different bodies of water, just like the BFLs, but you're either all in or you're not fishing. And I think that's what MLF needs to do, because it's very difficult for entry-level grassroots guy to come in and want to go to All-American or just to get to the regional. And, you're getting beat by these guys that are fishing one event, maybe 2 events.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you got all these expenses, I mean, not to show favoritism to any particular, tournament series, the tournament director, anything like that. I mean, Fish Potomac teams at $60 to get in between your partners, $120 a boat. You can fish every one of them for like $1,200, and you get to lay in your bed, the same bed, every tournament, and you're fishing your home water. So, and there's plenty of names, that. I mean, you can look online. I mean, some of these guys have probably won more money Potomac teams than most guys have been fishing the BFL for the last 15 years.
It's crazy, though, right?
There definitely need to be some structure.
The money difference is crazy.
It's real crazy.
It is. It is. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah, it's crazy. And again, this is what.
Yeah.
The professional anglers, this is not the first, this might be the last canary in the coal mine when it comes to corporate, when you need to slash different areas of your business to show different profit margins. And when it comes to bass and Major League Fishing, they're like, oh crap, Dustin Carnell, just the first one that comes to mind. Don't care about him, but with my brand, that's what. So Dustin requires this much money if he wins. Cool. Shit, we don't have it. What do we do? It's like, well, we're going to poach from the BFLs and the Toyotas because we need to make sure we get enough money for our boys. And guess what? The economy is shit. Spoiler warning. Gas is expensive. And you can tell that they are sapping so much money from Toyotas and BFLs. It's insane. And you're right. The drop off in price, even when you mentioned Smith Mountain Lake, that Smith Mountain Lake event this year, fantastic turnout. And the payouts still sucked. Like, they really were bad for the amount of boats that they got.
Yeah, it was not as great at all. I mean, I looked at I think it was the Alpha series that Steve Camp runs, and I think I might be wrong, but I knew he's a good fisherman, Chaz Carrington. I think Chaz won like $11,000. It's like, man, you'd be lucky to get that in a 2-day on the BFL, unless you own a brand new Phoenix, So, like, how can the grassroots guy going out there with a 2000, 481 Ranger or something like that, or whatever, go out there and really make money? It's very, very difficult. And I think we talked earlier. It's like it's the roulette table. I mean, you can go to Las Vegas. And you got a 47% chance of getting doubling your money. You only get top 20%, and you're fighting over the crumbs of that. And not to mention the fact too that what we didn't discuss is the membership. It used to be $35. It's like almost 80 now. So it's like you multiply that by 180 guys or 200 guys. I wonder where that money's going.
It sucks. It really sucks. And part of it is the economy and it's inflation. It's the market that we're in. And we have a good question here. Billy, you could just call in too, dude. Like, Billy, I say quick paying out 40 spots, top 15 max. You shouldn't be rewarded that far down the line. I will say you shouldn't be rewarded that far down the line based on how much you're paying, because I think like the elites and MLF, like you pay down a certain amount, but you're also paying like $6,000 freaking dollars. So yeah, I agree. I agree like with what Billy said there in the context of, I hated when I did a BFL and I got like a $49 check. It's like, what the hell do you want me to do with this? Just to say that I won $1.50?
Yeah.
Like, I would like the first check that's cut actually means something. Like, I do agree with that sentiment 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, even I mean, I hope somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. But I think even the Toyota series, the pay down structure, I think it's like a hole for every 4 or something like that, you know. And I think it's even, I think it was like that when it was the FLW tour. I think it was a similar. It wasn't a 20%. I think it was something like 25 or something like that. You know, so it paid down like so far down. So if you got a big check, it's like, man, by the time you pay taxes on this, it's like, dude, what do you got left? You know, so,
and I think
you know,
the
that's
big jip here is when it comes to Major League Fishing or bass, because I'm going to call you out too, Bass, is they don't really care about the little man.
absolutely.
They don't care about them. And it is
Exactly.
You could readjust the organization to where bass and Major League Fishing is not taking as much to where the payouts were better. They could do that, but it would hurt their elite, you know, event trail. So it is about how they're sapping money from it that creates that. That's why the cats in certain areas, like the cats and the ABAs, pay out better in some regards than the BFLs do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even I'm gonna be honest with you, even next year, man, I'm looking at something like totally different, but a decent payout structure. Is, I mean, you know, FLW when it came out, the BFL, I started fishing. They are a great avenue for guys that want to go to the next level, and Toyota series as well. But now it's just, I really feel like we're just money makers for the top guys, and I think, and there's nothing against those guys. I think what the problem is a lack of marketing on their side, because it's like, okay, we're making up for the downfall that they can't get money to support their guys. And, you know, of course, it's a business. It's not like we get to vote on schedules. We don't get to vote on rules. I mean, it's they make the rules. And it does suck. I mean, it does suck. It's not like TBF where you have a chapter and then you get to vote. BFLs are totally different. It's like, here's the rules, abide by it. If you don't like it, don't fish. And I mean, sadly, that's kind of what it's come down to. But I just can't understand it. But still, I mean, like you were saying earlier, I mean, Smith Mountain Lake, I don't remember a BFL that big in a very long time. I mean, almost a 200 boat field. I mean, you got to go to Alabama, so you see those type of numbers, or Florida to see those type of numbers. So there has to be some type of reason why we're getting these big numbers. You know, 2018, 2019, I think it was something like 150 to 160s. But, you know, they get 180 boats back on the Potomac, and during the 200 on Smith. It's pretty impressive, you know, but I just don't know why, you know, because this.
Well, I guess
you know,
part
so
of it is the growth in the sport. Like, I mean, again, it's funny. Like, we kept talking about the growth in the sport, and it's like a monkey's paw. It's like, be careful what you wish for. And it also has to do with kayaking too, which brought a lot of people into it. But the fact is, there probably are more people that now tournament fish when you factor in boats and kayaks than ever before. I think that's within reason. And now we get to see this issue here. And again, I've said this 1,000 times over the 3 years I've been doing this podcast. Whatever's happening in Japan or California is going to happen here. Those lakes are highly pressured with extremely veteran anglers that know how to deal with pressure. That's what's going to happen to all of our lakes. We have to be savvy. The idea that you can just lock in a bait for a decade and it'll work, you got to be willing to adapt. And that's like with the forward-facing sonar stuff too. Yeah,
I'm glad you kind of segued to that, because I ain't gonna lie to you. I was one of the guys that I hated it. I was like, this is like death to the sport. You know, I mean, I wasn't like on Randy Block as a jock. I think he gets kind of outlandish sometimes. But it's a tool like everything else. I mean, once I got it and I saw you, I mean, I've had it for like a month and a half, and it cut the learning curve. Absolutely. I mean, I seen stuff on Lake Anna Saturday. It was like, wow, I didn't know they even exist. I didn't know what that was. And I'm out there crappie fishing, using live minnows. And let me tell you something. Anytime you're using live minnows and you're seeing crappie just nose up to a bait and you're just shaking it and they just turn around. And I had another one do the same thing. So it's nowhere near an end game. People think, oh my God, you're going to see every fish and they're going to catch them. I beg to differ. And I mean, it made me a believer. And I'm the most skeptical of guys. I'm 47 years old. A lot of these guys are in their 20s and 30s. But yeah, I mean, it's not the end all game for bass fishing. You still got to catch them, and it's not as easy as what people think. For sure.
And Chris, we're really glad that you're here because we can really talk about this article. And then, guys, again, I'm going to take on a couple more callers tonight. The number is 667-307-8583. Again, if you want to come on, 667-307-8583. Come on, talk about whatever you want to talk about. But so there's a couple of articles that were released. I'll save the interesting information for the absolute end of the episode here. But an interesting article came out was from Bassmaster. We all saw this. I think John Cruz and a bunch of other professionals shared this as well. And so let me get this up here on the screen just for everyone to see here. And it was talking about the fisheries biologist reveals the effects of forward-facing sonar. And this was dropped June 7th, 2024. This is the stuff that is public knowledge. I will save the other stuff that is not public knowledge yet for the end that I have, but this is by Mike S. Allen. What was really interesting about this article was at this point, they don't see it affecting fisheries, but it could. And I thought that was interesting how many times in the article they talked about potentially or maybe. It really was them not knowing. I mean, the word potentially was used 7 times in this article. And for you guys that are home that haven't read a scientific journal before, potentially means they don't know shit. They don't know. When they say maybe, I don't know, like that's how they can spin things so that they can like look at a certain way, because they know if they say it one way that they'll get yelled at. But if you see those words like that, it means it's not 100% rock solid proof that, yes, this has affected it. And by the end of the article, it talks about the survival from catch and release is typically higher than 90%. And I think that's funny that they mentioned 90% because there's a lot of talk about fish mortality when it comes to heat, when it comes to the spawn. But right there in the article at the bottom there, as you can tell, they say 90% is usually the survival rate for catch and release. Well, if it's 90%, why are you wanting to ban the spawn? Because you're saying there's like a 40% mortality at the spawn, but right here you just said there's a 90% like survival rate. So I need a little bit more clarification on your numbers here, guys.
When I see stuff like that, I mean, the first thing I think about when I think about mortality rate, I think one of the biggest things is dissolved oxygen, of course. And always fish catch in these tournaments. I mean, I think, I don't think, I think the last call we talked about the number of tournaments and of course nobody wants to get Big Brother involved. I mean, my God, they're already in like everything on their life now. But, I think one of the parks that I remember when I lived in the northern neck of Virginia, like Beaver Dam Swamp Reservoir, down in Gloucester, and they wouldn't allow tournaments in August because of the mortality rate. Is that something that needs to be done, on the more larger scale tournaments, maybe some of the local tournaments? It's that's a big thing right there, man. I mean, one thing I will give credit to when I was fishing the Virginia TVF Region 1, they try to get a lot of this stuff out of the way, before late July going into August, because it's just so hard on those fish. I mean, you catch a limit early, let's say you don't upgrade a whole bunch, those fish are sitting in your live well for 8 hours, and, unless you're running your live well constantly all day, running G-juice, hydrogen peroxide, something, it's really, really hard on those fish, compared to the spawn. Usually it's like cooler water, it's just a lot less stress on those fish. And I don't know, maybe it's a mental thing too, because we're thinking, hey, these fish are big girls, they're spawning, you know. But then it's like, when you pull a fish off a nest, is it worse than fishing in August? So, yeah, I mean that's what I like to know, to see the data of. Is it worse taking a fish off a spawn over maybe losing a single fish in August? You know, those are potential, you know, next generation fish. You take them on the spawn and they get ate up by a bunch of bluegills. So, you know, that's a really, really, really tough one. You know, I know Dr. Joe Love is, you know, really good at analyzing that data. But that's some data that I'd like to see, is delayed mortality during the summer versus pulling fish off a bed in that, you know, April, May time frame. That is that's some big data I'd like to see for sure.
100%.
But I just think if you pull fish off,
and
I think if you pull those fish off during the spawn, I think that's where she really hurts.
I agree 100%. And I want to get your thoughts on this piece of the article that I'm going to say to everyone. And again, guys, I'm going to take about probably one more phone call here. So 667-307-8583 if you want to get on this. I know that there is a big time forward-facing sonar proponent individual listening right now, so it'd be interesting to get his thoughts. But I'm going to read this excerpt from the article, Chris. I want to get your thoughts on it too. So it says, in fisheries science, we have a term called catchability, which applies to specific fishing equipment. This is defined as the fraction of a fish population captured per unit of fishing effort. In commercial fishing, this could be the fraction of a fish population caught per trawl or per gill net set. In recreational fishing, it could be the number of fish caught per angling day. Improvement in technology can increase catchability. When I saw this, and guys, what you can do is Command F on your laptop. You can do like you can word search on the article, and it says fishing effort, like per unit of fishing effort. I would love to know, like, what the hell are they talking about when it comes from like, I get, like, if you drag a net, okay, you're gonna have so many fish in the net, but what if you just had an off day? What if you only threw one bait? Like, that is such it seems to me, a vague unit, one way or the other, to say.
You know, when I hear that, the first thing that comes to my mind is a company located in Canada called Omega Protein, which drag nets all over the Chesapeake Bay, and they've got the ultimate in technology. It's called a spotter plane. And anytime that you can see 2 to 3 acres of menhaden and can give a coordinate, can give the direction and which way they're going, and set a net like right in front of them. And it's not just menhaden in there. There's also like a ton and a half of 30-pound bull redfish. Oh, we didn't see them. They were underneath them. And the state of Virginia does nothing at all. I mean, that's the biggest smack in the face in the world. I mean, they talk about catch per unit. It's like, and then they want to talk about full face of sonar, like it's the end all game. And it's really not. I mean, Thomas, I was out there crappie fishing, and it's like, you'd be surprised. I mean, like I said earlier, I'm using live bait, and I'm watching them nose up to the bait and just turn around on it. And so you have some fish that are just active that they'll eat, and then you have some that for whatever reason they won't eat, and they're just not catchable. But the one thing I will say, and for me, if I did not, and I'll admit it, if I did not have full face of sonar, I don't believe I would be able to catch as many fish, for sure, because I'm seeing the live side of it, the behavior, compared to 2D, where I don't know, I can't even count how many fish on there. It looks like a big brush pile. I can't really make out. But like I said, I've been using a month. It ain't like I've been using 2-3 years, or I'm a Gen 3 or Gen 4, live scope user. It's definitely a game changer. It adds that element of behavioral, and if you're really into fish behavior and things of that nature, it's really intriguing. I will say that much. It's very, very interesting. When you throw a jerkbait, or you throw a hover minnow, bait of some sort, and just see him nose up to it and just turn around the other way and go back down. So it's, yeah, the catchability side of it is I think really it's just, man, it just seems like it's based on the fish or even the time of day.
It's also the
It's
fisherman.
very interesting. Very interesting.
You know, I really think it's also based on the fisherman, especially when you have the wording in there, which is like in recreational fishing, it could be the number of fish caught per angler. Like it's so they don't know what that means when it comes to recreational fishermen. And that also leads to this. I am going to get in a world of trouble for sharing this, but I will show a little sneak peek of this bad boy here.
I'll take the blame.
No, I'll take. So basically, there was an educational journal that was dropped by the Texas Fish and Game on the effects of forward-facing sonar on Texas fisheries. The guy's name is, I really should know this because I was just talking to him via email. Hold on for Jake. I'm going to leave his last name out of it. Jake is going to be coming on the show in June. He's going to talk about his study, but it talks about the effects of forward-facing sonar on Texas fisheries. He did this study over a long time. I was going through the PowerPoint presentation. You guys, if you're wondering how I got access to this, because I'm the Maryland Board of the Department of Wildlife Resources, I got access to all this data stuff, and I messaged him because I read through it. Basically, it shows that it's not that big of a leap. When you talk about how forward-facing sonar, is it pillaging our fisheries? Not as bad as you think it is. That blew my mind looking at the data, and we'll be going into it a little bit more in depth with him. But what I think it comes down to it is also, and this is what sucks, it's the skill of the fisherman. And that's what the data really proved, is just because you have forward-facing sonar doesn't mean you automatically catch 25 pounds.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, it definitely, you know, shortens the learning curve compared to traditional sonar, or even down imaging. It's definitely, I mean, you spend $10,000 on equipment, but if you don't know how to utilize it, I mean, trust me, believe me, I see, you know, Randy Carpenter all the time on Garmin Guru, and he's always on there, and guys ask questions, oh, how do I set this up? How come, you know, I get all this stitch? I mean, there's a lot of folks that are still learning the technology. I mean, you have to, there's no magic settings that you get on it. You have to put time on the water. I can go from the Potomac to Lake Anna and my settings will change. You can fish the same body of water like Lake Anna or Smith Mountain or Kerr, you know, and there's pond on the water. You have to know how to change your settings. So I think, this is my opinion on it. I think a lot of the younger generation are good at it because they're just good at computers. They're just but you have to. Those guys still put their time in. I mean, I'm still learning. You know, I'm on the water. I'm always playing around with it. It's like turning my TVG to medium or low or off, or turning my color gain on. It's definitely a learning curve involved. You know, and before I get off here, I don't want to hold up the line too much. The other thing I learned, Thomas, was it's not just a forward-facing thing, but of course I have Garmin. I'm using the perspective mode, and I'm not actively targeting a fish on perspective mode. But one thing I will say, it is unbelievable trying to find a grass line. The amount of bait that I do not see, that I now see. You can see fish like swimming around in the grass. Once they get in the grass, they disappear. So if they're like not in a feeding mood or they don't feel like eating, guess what? It's going to look like it ain't a fish in the water. But if they're coming up above that grass, it's not good in the thick grass, but if you're on the outside edges, the clumpy grass, that's usually where I catch my bigger fish anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's a difference maker. But yeah, that skill level, the skill level is still going to be a key thing, because what's going to happen in time, everybody's going to have it. I can guarantee you that everybody's going to have it. But you're still going to have that skill level in using the data that you see on your Garmin or your active target or the Humminbird project active target, and then be able to put that on the water. So yeah, it's definitely a skill level still involved, no doubt about it, Thomas.
No, 100%. And then guys, again, like if there's anything that you want to make sure that we talk about, please drop a comment or give a call on the show. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts here. One question we have here, this would be interesting just to kind of talk to you about is, do you recommend a certain size boat on the Potomac around southern MD area? I have an 18-foot aluminum Crestliner with a 90 horsepower engine. I live in Western Maryland area, never been down there.
So he's trying to fish the lower Potomac River.
Tidal.
I'm thinking he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I always say this: you want to pick your days. If I had a 17-footer with a 90, if you've never been there before, you're coming out of Western Maryland, I'm gonna think you're probably going to launch out of Small State Park, which is a great park. With a small boat until you really feel comfortable. I would definitely come out of Slavens and off of Madwoman Creek, which is the upper portions of the Madwoman Creek. Plenty of vegetation, there's plenty of wood, there's grass. If you launch out of Smallwood, you got Marshall Island area. That's a good area. Everybody talks about the fish camp around there. That's a great area. You can do a lot of fishing even with that night. And if it's a great calm day, there's no problem, running outside to the river, go to Chickamauga Creek. I mean, that's another great creek. And eventually once you feel real comfortable, maybe you can run across the river to Leesvania. The main and most important thing I will tell anybody before you go out, I know I feel like that meme on Instagram now, check your weather. Don't go out there, 4:00 in the afternoon or 3:00 in the afternoon and you're on the Leesvania side. Oh man, the fishing's getting good, or you're in Quantico and all of a sudden, there's a tornado warning and now you got like 4-foot seas and you got to cross the river to get back to Small State Park. 17-footer with a 90, locally, you're great. You're great. If you launch on Leesvania, you're great. You run up the Absco and maybe even Quantico. Always check your weather, man, and wear your PFDs, please, man. Where you have your safety gear in check, man. That's the most important thing.
And guys, we're going to end this show with something a little bit spicy, probably, unless anybody, I got to actually check to see if we got some calling people. Oh, we do. We have someone there. This is an interesting question. This will be a whole topic here. It would be a fun mental exercise. Let me find the comment. Here it is. So it's from Jonathan. What about the upper Potomac where certain guys fish the same stretches and hammer their spots 5 days a week? So Jonathan sounds like he's upset at fishing guides. Very interesting thought here, because I guess the point is, and just for people that are listening, context is a fishing guide is somebody that uses the public body of water to make money off of. So that's their livelihood, is using the public body of water. And so what you're saying, Jonathan, or just here or anywhere else, is should that be allowed? And it's such a weird thing because we complain about tournaments, but on the same token, it's like it's a public body of water and they make their living. Like, I don't know. It's a slippery slope when we start outlawing things. I'm a very big proponent of I'm a libertarian. Just leave me alone. It's kind of my vibe. So
yeah,
go for it, Chris.
And I can understand. I've heard that type of convo as far as tournaments and stuff go. Because you got some guys that don't fish tournaments. I mean, you got some guys that live in Marbury, Maryland that they don't fish tournaments and they're off. They work Monday through Friday. They want to go on a Saturday and catch a few bass. And, they can't go to the local park because there's 200 boats and they got parked in the third lot and walk what feels like a half a mile to the boat ramp. I get that. I really do. I think the state of Maryland, what they tried to do too, I think they opened up it used to be called John Wilson's back in the day. I think it's maybe called Perth State Park now. I could be wrong. But it's near Mallows Bay. And I think that alleviated some of the tournament pressure, so guys can launch over there and still, get river access and stuff. And I really hate to say it like this, but it's in everything. It's in tournament organizations. It's in the government. It's everywhere. Man, it's where the money is, and it's unfortunate. I think we talked about that. Man, that's a whole nother discussion. But just like the Chamber of Commerce, I mean, these organizations, they're going to chase where the money is. whoever has the biggest pockets and the biggest voice, select squeaky wheel. I mean, those are the ones that's going to get the attention. But yeah, that's unfortunate. And as far as guiding, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm sort of weird because I don't just fish the Potomac. I mean, I fish the Potomac, I fish Lake Anna, I do saltwater. I mean, I fish the lower Potomac, I fish the lower Rappahannock, the Urbana. I mean, I'm like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, that's how they make their living. I mean, it's like telling, Jerry Decatur, oh no, dude, you can't crab on the Potomac anymore. You got to crab on the James now. So, I mean, that's how they make their living. And, the expenses guys, I mean, not just including myself. I mean, that was all the guys out here, man. I mean, all the licenses are super expensive. I mean, the schooling is super expensive. I mean, it's a lot. But one thing I will say, if I see a tournament going on and there's a platoon of boats, I'm going to try to go in an area where I know there's not a lot of guys fishing. I mean, my clients at the end of the day, they just want to catch a bunch of fish and be happy, I try to stay out of that area, or even if I see a guy that's guiding. I mean, it happened on Smith Mountain. There was a guy that was trolling for striper. I wanted to fish his point, and he was coming across it. I knew, hey, he was a guide, and I left it alone. That guy's trying to make his livelihood. So, but yeah, going back to the question, yeah, I can definitely understand his pain. Yeah, I understand that. But it's a public body of water, and it's not not a whole lot you can do about it. I mean, if I was a property owner, I got a dock, and I got 4 bass boats, casting my dock every single day. I mean, ain't nothing I can do about it. I mean, I don't own the water. I own the pier, but I don't own the water. So I can't stop them from fishing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like Jonathan, I think Jonathan's in the chat too. Jonathan says like 100% public water. They certainly have the right to do it. Yeah, Jonathan, just hop on in here. Again, the number, Jonathan, is 667-307-8583. We have another caller that's ready to go, so I want to make sure I get him in as well. But that's a slippery slope thing. When Jonathan was talking about like, a guy fishing the same spots, or Josh Evans talking about like, well, there's too many tournament organizations. Like, how are you fixing the problem? Because if you say like we're going to outlaw tournaments, well, the next thing people will complain about is like, well, there's too many guys, so let's outlaw that. And then before you know it, we're going to be outlawing how many. It never just ends. It always is one more step that it goes. And I 100% understand what you guys are saying. There's a problem. I'm not intelligent enough to fix it.
Yeah, I mean, and the other side of it too is we're talking about guys. There's a lot of guys that do a lot of good on the river. My buddy Captain Mike from Apex Predators. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, that dude catches some snakehead, man, and and catfish. And if it wasn't for your guys or your watermen out here, I mean, I live on Fairview Beach a lot. I'm 8 minutes from Fairview Beach. And I don't think people realize the amount of blue cats that are on this water. I mean, I'm talking about, I've seen tons. I mean, seriously, tons come out of that water. Mm. And they go back every single day. It's that many catfish out here. So it's like, there's some guys that do beneficial work. I mean, you got to keep the snakehead numbers in check, just like you got to keep the catfish numbers in check. But
I 100% agree.
I mean, I'm not out. I mean, I'm still part-time guy. I'm not out there like 5 days out of the week, and but at the same token, man, it's just it's about respect on the water. If I see a local guy and he's already there, I'm not going to pull up on him. That ain't right, man. And that's just etiquette.
Chris, I 100% agree, and I'm definitely going to be getting you on the show here for a full episode. I know we got a couple.
Oh, absolutely, callers. Man.
We got another couple of callers in the queue that have been waiting, so I want to make sure I get to them. But Chris, thank you so much for hopping on. I appreciate it. Again, guys, go check him out, Chris Johnson in your guide service. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. KJ's Outdoor Adventures, man. And I'll tell you, everybody that's listening to the call, please support the channel, man. Fishing the DMV, man. Thomas Aaron's doing a great job. Man, I really appreciate you. Keep doing great work, brother.
Thank you, boss. I have a great night. Talk to you later. Bye.
You too, bud.
All right. And we got that call there, just figuring out this new software, guys. No, I mean that is really interesting there with all that's going on. And then we had Justin B Fishing just talk about this here, which is Louisiana just passed a law that members on a paid charter cannot keep redfish, and that's basically their money fish down there. And then we got caller, you are here on the line 73234.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Doing good. I might be your furthest regular listener. I live in New Jersey, but I'm very interested in your area of fishing. I go down to Potomac at least once or twice a year, and I fish the Upper Bay quite a bit, and they're probably my two favorite places to fish. So I'm outside of the region, but I'm in your region a lot. And I really enjoy the show. I watch pretty much every week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, no, you're definitely in our region because the Upper Bay. I mean, that's all we have, especially in Jersey when it comes to, I guess, like boat-sized tournament fishing waters. Maybe Blue Plains or Blue Haven up there in Pennsylvania. But that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, we really only have two bodies of water that you can run your outboard and have a tournament on in New Jersey, and that's Lake Apacon. That's only like 2,900 acres, and then the Delaware River. Plus, our season's closed from April 15th to June 15th. So we're either in Connecticut on Candlewood, which is taking a beating right now, or, down on the Upper Bay or the Potomac pretty much all spring.
It really is this weird domino effect with what Pennsylvania did, Jersey did, and places like that. We're like, hey, we're going to close down our season. And so you just screw over all the other states around you because you did that. And I've always been interested in another world. If Jersey and Pennsylvania didn't create that legislation to ban tournaments, does the Potomac and the Upper Bay get as much pressure? I would think probably not, because in general, people just don't want to commute that far for tournaments.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you, like, the Upper Bay series, like the Chesters and the Susquehannas and all that stuff, a ton of that field is Jersey guys, especially a lot of the guys who win them all the time. There's a group of guys in South Jersey who, like, run the Upper Bay. And, I mean, guys from Jersey just aren't fishing Jersey waters because, one, there's not that many you're allowed to, period. But, during spring when the fishing is best, you're not really allowed to have tournaments at all. And, I mean, I fish a small club sometimes that does a catch, weigh, and release format in the spring, which I actually love because we get to fish, the lakes around here when they're good and we're not, hurting fish populations. But a majority of the clubs, and especially when you get, bigger size tournaments, the Bass Nation or whatever, just aren't really willing to do that or have the resources to do that. So, we're stuck driving and inevitably putting more pressure on your guys' body of water. I'm sorry about that, but
it's such a Pandora's box because I think at this point, maybe I'm a little jaded or pessimistic. Every state will eventually do this domino effect of outlawing or banning fishing this time of year because apparently not only is it the best time of year to fish, you're not allowed on the water. So once every state outlaws weigh-in tournaments, the next thing is catch, weigh, release. And then everyone will be allowed to fish at that time of year again, unless then they pass new legislation that says, like, no, you're just not allowed to fish then. I guess that's where we're headed because I could definitely, if Maryland and Virginia said, like, hey, listen, we want to either ban out-of-state license plates from fishing here or we have to stop tournament fishing because we're getting overpressured. They have an argument. Like, I can't say I agree with the argument, but they have one when so many states are banning it this time of year, and it puts so much pressure on these bodies of water.
Yeah, and I mean, I hear you say this all the time on the show. I'm of the same school of thought as you, as like, I don't want any oversight over anything because I think in the end that will cause more harm than good and, just open up the floodgates for other regulations because, me being a guy who lives in Jersey who sees this all the time, there are a ton of lakes across our state that you're just not even allowed to fish at all. You know,
That
they've
sucks.
closed it because they use it for water, or a lot of it is like water purposes. Because like, especially we have a lot of reservoirs that feed like the city, so it's kind of understandable. They're afraid of like terrorism stuff and stuff like that. So that's why a lot of these reservoirs are closed. But I mean, it really, you know, it drastically limits our options. And you wouldn't think it. There's a ton of bass fishermen in New Jersey and a lot of really, really, really good tournament fishermen. And they just have to look elsewhere, whether it's north to Candlewood or it's south to the Bay of the Potomac.
Yeah, and the government oversight there, like, and we've talked about that, of course, on the show. Like the idea of safety, that's always how they manipulate you. Is like, for your safety, you're not allowed to fish here anymore. It's like an astronaut can piss and drink in his suit, and you're saying in 2024 you're afraid of people poisoning. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And there's some reservoirs where you can use a gas engine and they still use it for water. So I don't believe them when they say the reason is water. Like, they want to make sure the water quality is that of like Evian. It's like, no, I really think you're just being disingenuous when you say that.
The one that kills me the most is because there's a ton of this in New Jersey. There's a lot of 9/9 only lakes, which a lot of those are water reservoirs. Which I don't know how you would enforce this. I always say I feel like they should do like a idle only rule. You know, if they're worried about people going fast, because if you're pretending that you're worrying about pollution, I mean, I have a brand new 4-stroke engine that at idle is definitely not doing the amount of damage that Jimmy with his 1982 stroke 9/9. He's leaking oil all over the lake. So you can't tell me that rule is in place to keep the water clarity, because they're doing way more damage than I would, but I'm not allowed to do it.
Yeah, and we have a place down here called Aquan Reservoir, and that place we had at least 2 tournaments this year where it took over 36 pounds to win, and it's a 9 unrestricted lake. It's close to 3,000 acres. And I thought, like, let me idle my big boat, because you know what would happen if I got on plane? You would sue the living shit out of me or fine the living shit out of me, which you should do. And that's how you completely nix that issue. Is if you hear a 4-stroke on pad, you know who that person is, and you just either ban them or fine the living hell out of them, and people won't do it.
Yeah, and me and all my buddies who fish locally and a ton of Jersey guys always talk about, we wish there was like a idle only rule. And I don't know if it's just because, you know, this is just how things have always been, and you know, the bureaucracy of trying to change anything is just impossible. But like, even suggesting anything to anybody, they look at you like you're crazy.
And it's the idea of wake boats and jet boats, like, or jet boats and jet skis. Like, that's the thing that no one wants to talk about. It's it's the elephant in the room. The people that buy those wake boats, I talked to the guy that runs the Richmond Fishing Expo and the Raleigh Fishing Expo. He sold 2 wake boats that were over, I think he said $300,000 for 2 of them. The people that buy those things, they're the lawyers, they're the congressmen. They got some pockets on them. And they don't want to blatantly say, I think in the rules, hey, listen, you're not allowed on the lake. But if you say it's a 9/9 restriction, it's vague enough and it kind of like checks all the boxes. It has to be something like that, because it makes no sense. So example is like on Occoquan Reservoir, for the colleges down there and the high schools, that's where all the rowing teams go. And I shit you not, there's 1,000 rowers on that place 24/7. And I bet you money that's why they put 9/9, because they don't want any boat there throwing a ripple that would mess them up. And the colleges have enough money to basically make sure that stays that way. And I don't know how many like rowing teams are up that way, but here they're a nuisance. Sorry for anyone that rows that's listening to the show, but it's insane.
Yeah, no, I can relate to that. I have a small lake, like, you know, 20 minutes from my house about that Princeton University uses for their rowing teams. And it's an electric only lake, but the Princeton University team, you know, they get to run their outboard boats where they, I don't know, they shout at them or do whatever they do with rowing, but they're running up and down the lake all the time, but nobody else is allowed to use anything but the trolling motor.
That makes no sense. Why would you do, like, again,
It's pretty crazy. And like even these watershed lakes that I was talking about before, they all have like patrol boats that zip around and like yell at people for like not following the rules. Like there's one lake I fish all the time where you have to wear your life jacket the entire time, which whatever, but it's electric only. And this guy is zipping around the lake doing 30, 40 miles an hour all day long, yelling at people for not having their life jackets on. And it's an electric only lake. It's a very odd thing going on in Jersey.
Are you saying like it's like rules for you but not for me? Because that's what Lake Manassas is like almost 1,000-acre lake in Northern Virginia, and a massive conglomerate bought all the land around it. And once they bought all the land around it, they made it private, put in a big time golf course, and they spent. And I talked about this a while ago, but they spend $80,000 to $90,000 per year making sure people don't get in on that thing, and they did that for a while. That's stupid. That the amount of money you're spending to keep people off a pretty big lake, that you just want to stay scenic when you could put a boat ramp in there and just charge out the ass. That's fine. But at least you could make some revenue out of it. Like people, and this is the other thing I have with lakes right now, especially these smallish lakes. I think a lot more of them are going to private. When you look at the whole BlackRock thing and people buying up real estate, at some point, lakes are so valuable. They don't want you to put them in, but as soon as you put a body of water somewhere, the land around that thing goes through the roof when it comes to price. I can see a Lake Anna one day becoming completely private. You just need one trust fund kid to get killed on a jet ski, and they're going to say, for your safety, you're only allowed on the lake if you know somebody that owns land or something like that. Boom. We're getting to that place, ladies and gentlemen, for these smaller lakes. It will happen.
Yeah, and the other thing you don't need is people from my area keep moving down south to where you're at, because it's happening more and more and more. And if they take the ideas from here around there, it's going to happen, because in the northern part of the state, I'm not kidding when I say probably 70 to 80% of the ponds and lakes are fully private.
That's scary. That's scary, because I know there's like one guy. He was on like a Lake Anna chat, and he was, and I think he was from New York, was what his Facebook profile said. And he's talking about like killing all the SAV and stuff, and the way he talked about it was so blatant, like you don't understand the culture. Like he wants a swimming pool. He treated it more like a swimming pool than actually, it's a lake. It is not your private swimming pool, and it's that mindset that killed Florida. I think when you have so many transplants going down to Florida, and then they're just dropping pesticide by helicopters and planes down there, and they wonder why they're having so many issues. It's crazy.
Yeah, and we get that. That's an ongoing issue. My buddy has been like emailing and going to meetings and stuff with Fish and Game and other resources here, because the pesticides and the SAV situation, I mean, I've heard you talk about it multiple times. In my opinion, that the SAVs are the most important thing to bass fishing, and our lakes get absolutely crushed. Like Lake Apacon, like I'm saying, the only public lake that we can run on and have tournaments and stuff, they get crushed with pesticides. They let homeowners apply for permits, which pretty much any of them can get, and they can spray weeds themselves off their docks. My buddy actually had a conversation with a guy who had a bass boat tied to his dock while he was spraying the weeds in front of his dock. And he said, do you realize like the damage you're doing to the lake right here? Like you're a bass fisherman, are you not? And his response was, I'll just go fish in another part of the lake. I want my dock to be clean.
It's a weird cognitive disconnect where you can buy land next to a national forest, and then you could cut down all of the trees and stuff on your property because you want it to look a certain way. And it's so fascinating to me, like the person's mindset there, where if you wanted a pool, go get a pool. If you wanted a clean property, get a clean property. Why would you buy something next to a national forest? And I grew up in Loudoun County, and Loudoun County used to be just all pastures. And I used to hunt all the time growing up. And then all these people from either California, places like that, because Northern Virginia is just expensive as hell. They buy vineyards, they buy all this stuff, and they just completely change it because they want it to be like the idea of what the country landscape is. They don't actually want the country landscape. And it's bizarre to me. I can't wrap my brain around that thought process. I really can't.
Yeah, there's two public hunting areas in my entire county, and both of them you can walk around for days and not even see a deer. So,
Wow. Dude, well, yeah, I mean, come on down here. I'll show you some fisheries that actually do have some fish in them if you ever are down this way. But I really appreciate you calling. I'm sorry about that situation. It really sucks up there in Jersey, man.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's why at least I come down as much as I do, because it's really, you know, kind of our only options for, you know, when you're fishing tournaments. And, you know, I fish bunch of different tournaments, a couple bigger trails and stuff, and you go where they tell you to go, and it's always down there. So,
and I guess the question to me is, with the size of the lakes that you're usually fishing, and you go to the Potomac, and granted, the Potomac is a great fishery and it's really big, you wouldn't be opposed to smaller fisheries at all. So, if you did do a Lake Anna, Blue Haven, in Pennsylvania, like places like that are a little bit, they're not the size, but you could go fishing that time of year.
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to that in the schedule?
Yeah. I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, I'm kind of a little bit of a different case than most of the guys in Jersey, probably, because I did college fishing for 4 years, and, you know, I've done BFLs, which I know you were talking about that before. I don't do anymore. I've even done like Toyota series and stuff like that. So I've been all over the place fishing a bunch of big bodies of water. I personally like to fish the big bodies of water, but, you know, if they were throwing small stuff on our schedule, especially stuff that the field hasn't been to before, like I always love going to new places, because I feel, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I've been to a lot of places before. So I always feel like I have a personal advantage when nobody has history on the lake. You know, I feel like I'm a younger guy, you know, so most of these places I'm fishing against guys who've been fishing them for 25, 30, 35, 40 years. So I love going to new places, but I mean, big, small, whatever in between, as long as I'm allowed to actually turn my engine on, I mean, I'll fish a tournament wherever they want to send me.
No, right on, boss. And that's honestly also the sentiment I get from chat and everything, where you'll fish local if you're allowed to, because it's convenient. And then of course you'll go out of state or you'll go to other places. It's just it is down to this weird government mandate that you're not allowed to, which really is just a pain in the ass. Because again, with gas prices and just life, we all can't, like, this is the problem with the kayak trails. I know with like the Hobie Trail, they had some issues with that Texas tournament with getting draw, because not everyone can drive to Texas to do it. Not everyone can go from Jersey to Virginia or from, you know, because Virginia's size, Northern Virginia all the way down to Smith every weekend, because you have a family. It costs money and shit. But if you're forced to, like, yeah, I don't know. This will be interesting at the next Maryland meeting to see if anything about this comes up. But no, dude, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. Guys, we're going to definitely be doing more call-in shows like this now that we got this all beta tested. Dude, I really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, man. Love the show.
Thanks. Talk to you later, bud. All right, bye. There you got it, guys. That was awesome. Great call-in show tonight. We're going to be doing this a lot more now that I got this software caught up here. We got a bunch of questions. I'm probably going to do a square up for all of these questions that we have in chat that I didn't get to. Let's get a couple done here. I want to get at least one done. Where'd that one go? It only gets worse once you start adding in more government control to it, 100%. And again, I'm not trying to be all whatever. It's just, I can see when you start adding more rules, what happens. It's a slippery slope. And so do I want to see some things change? Absolutely, I do. And I also I want to be a realist and not too much of virtue when it comes to catch-weight release. I think catch-weight release, for better or worse, with the technology. Look at ChatGPT. Look at what's going on with catch photo release tournaments. Like, the technology will catch up to where doing catch-weight release in a single boat tournament will make sense. That's what's scary. In one sense, that's how good the technology will get. Our kids, if they're fishing tournaments, there will be a lot more catch-weight release tournaments. I think the Pandora's box here, if you think about this, if you start outlawing weigh-in tournaments because of fish health, okay, because of bringing them into the live well and all that other crap, fine. Okay, but then we create a world where catch-weight release is the norm. Weigh-in terms are a relic. Are then people going to be complaining like, but the mortality rates are still too high? At what point are mortality rates acceptable? Guess what? Yeah, fish will die. That's what's going to happen. What is an acceptable rate of fish deaths to where we can still out and go fishing? It sucks that some fish will die, but if the number is absolute zero, that means fishing needs to be outlawed when it comes to catch weight release. Just keep that in mind when people start talking about this stuff about fish mortality rates. You know, I think Jonathan said something here about when you have a particular guide fishing a stretch 5 days a week and hammering the same holes every day to the point that they almost stop holding fish. There's something wrong with that. Yeah, but it's public water. And here's the thing. Let's say that person does it every day. Those places won't hold fish anymore because fish move. And guess what? That person doesn't catch them anymore. And then you get to catch them because they move somewhere else and then you catch them. That's how fishing works. You know, and that's public water. It sucks. It really does. But you gotta outthink the fishermen and you gotta outthink the fish, which is possible. Like no spot will hold fish indefinitely. Pressure will move them and they'll go somewhere else. And then you can then time in on that too. You know, that's kind of how fishing works. But guys, and then we got one more question here. Clay Jackson, can you explain the Zach Burge drama in the name? Why can't I speak English? Oh my God. The Chawan? I feel like I'm getting close to being racist the way I say that. Chawan? I'm going to stop that. Anyway, I will do a whole episode on that and I will get somebody else that's also more intelligent than me because I feel like at this time, I cannot break this down the whole time. But it's MLF being retarded again. That's what they're really good at. But again, guys, thank you so much. This was a fantastic inaugural call-in show. I think it's really worked. Let's start doing these more. Please let me know in the comment section. Do you want me to do more call-in shows for Monday Night Lives? If so, I will make this more of a thing. Like, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out in the algorithm. And also, I know this is really like a little thing, but we are only 8 Patreon members away from our next major milestone. I would really appreciate it if you go support the show. Sponsorship dollars are super dry. Y'all know that about the fishing industry. If it wasn't for my Patreon supporters, I could not be doing this show the way I am. I would really appreciate it. We're only 8 Patreon members away from our next major milestone. And again, someday when we hit our big milestone, we're going to start our own nonprofit so we can supplementally stock all of our local fisheries. We will create that nonprofit to help fight for our local waterways so fishermen have a voice. So we will be the NRA for our local waters and our anglers. That is my overall goal and our dream. But before we get there, we just need 8 more to get our next step on that journey. Like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.